This time I'd like to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Chairman Scott Tremblay.
Here.
Member William Dittmer.
Here.
Member Jenny Sorrell.
Here.
Member Todd McClary.
Here.
Member Tom Kinsella.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager John Duke.
Here.
Looking for a motion to approve board minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Board minutes.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
At this time, I'm going to just give a real brief introduction. Welcome, John Duke, to our fine city, and we're happy to have you. And I'll reintroduce you during the regular meeting as well, as I think there may be different people watching that meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's good to be here.
At this time, we're going to open up with comments from the general public. I don't know if anyone signed up, but I see that there's various people here. I don't know if they're here just early for the other meeting or not. So by show of hands, I want to make sure that anyone from the general public can speak as it relates to CRA, which is not the same issue if you want to speak for the regular meeting, by show of hands. All right, I don't see anyone from the general public. So we're going to move on to comments from city manager.
Well, very briefly, it's good to be here. I have, dealing specifically with CRA, I've had several contacts with our CRA auditor. Staff got, I believe, everything that he asked for back to him today. Appreciate Mr. Mathau's assistance in that. Also met with one of the property owners at the WOD at the Coatee River Landing area. So those both tied to CRA.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? I have one issue I'd like to raise just in the comment section. I received, and I think we all received an email late yesterday, probably around 3 o'clock, suggesting that the county had some interest in what's going on in our CRA. One of the commissioners, actually a couple of them, reached out to me, and they wanted, what they told me is they wanted basically an update if we had any on the audit, which the audit's not complete, so we forwarded that information. But they just wanted a general overview of what we were looking to do with the Waterfront Overlay District. So I put together the same presentation that we had in the exact same documents that we had and brought it over. And I gave them that information so they know exactly what direction we were going with that area as it relates to our CRA. The reason I'm bringing that up, probably more importantly, is then the county commissioners at the meeting started asking me fairly pointed questions about boundaries, about whether we were spending on salaries and all these other things, a lot of which will be fleshed out in the audit. That having been said, at the end of, I guess, that kind of exchange between those folks, and I didn't really answer any questions because I said, of course, you understand I'm in the same posture you guys are. I can't make these decisions or give you any answers. These types of issues must be brought before our council and discussed as a group, and we will come to a collective decision about any concerns they may have if we're going to do anything. That having been said, would you guys be agreeable to put this on for discussion, if nothing else, at the next CRA meeting, and we'll set it 2 weeks out at our next council meeting?
Sure. I'm all for it. Yeah, absolutely.
And what I'll do is I'll outline the issues. I guess I can give you just a brief preview so you can understand what the issues are going to be. Commissioner Moore's concern was that we have areas in our city that he says are not blighted, and he pointed to Harbor Point and a couple others where he said there were higher end houses. And he suggested that those areas should be removed from our CRA boundaries because they're no longer blighted. And he felt that we should take action. So that was his issue that he raised.
We don't set those areas, the states.
I understand that, but
Okay.
I think that'll be right for discussion when we come up. So he asked me about that, and then and I didn't reply, but I suspect that's where the conversation will go. And then some of the others is they wanted to know some things that I think will be fleshed out in the audit, such as whether or not we're still spending money on salaries and whether or not we keep track of that time that's spent or whether or not we have to, so I guess we can touch on that. And then probably the other issue is they asked about the funding of the CRA, and that was Mr. Mariano's question to me, you know, why it was not funded 50% for this fiscal year. And I gave them a memo that we had obtained that explained why we didn't do it in the analysis. And I'll provide that to you guys as well, and I think it's ripe for discussion. And then what I would like to do is, they seem very interested in what's going on here, so I wanted to invite them here so they can be part of our discussion. So what I'd like to ask our new city manager to do is maybe contact Mr. Biles and let them know that that's going to be the point of discussion, and that we're going to be discussing issues that they've raised, so they're welcome to be here, and we would love to reserve some time for them to speak and to raise any additional issues they have. And that's okay by consensus?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And like I said, I was put on the spot with some of these issues, and I really didn't give any answers because I think it's got to be discussed before we can give them a response.
I have no problem with you that as long as when we get our agenda that we have some supporting information underneath it so that we can research.
And what I'll do is I'll provide to everybody what I provided to them.
That's excellent.
So you guys will have the same exact information they had. And when I say I'll get with the city staff and make sure they provide that.
Okay.
And that's all I had for comments. Any other? At this time, I wanted to move on to board business. And we have one item, it's item 2, and that's the adoption of CRA ethics policy, resolution 21-03. And I was going to pass that to our city attorney, Mr. Matthau.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the conflict of interest and ethics policy, which I discussed last time. I'll answer any questions if you want. I'll just read it by title only. Resolution 21-03, a resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency Board of the City of Port Richey, Florida, adopting a conflict of interest and ethics policy. Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve CRA ethics policy, resolution 21-03. Second.
Before we vote, I see a lot of people from the general public here. I'd like to open it up for any kind of commentary from the public on this particular issue before we vote. Nobody signed up. Show of hands, does anyone wish to speak to this particular item? Seeing no hands, I'd like to move on and put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And at this time, we'll move on to old business. And I'm going to start with my left this time with the Vice Mayor.
I have no CRA business.
None.
I have no CRA business.
And I don't have any.
And with that, I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Let's take a brief